If you were to prioritise the core services that council provides, what would be your top three?
Yeah, I mean, we already prioritise every day, but it depends on the community. I mean, in some communities it's environment, water quality. In other communities it's transport and housing.
So if you were to prioritise three top things as a councillor for Auckland, what would be the top three?
Well, I always prioritise depending on what the community wants, and that's my point. So definitely things like transport, environment, water quality, but the list would go on. You can't live without animal management. You can't live without public.
Did rates increase actually become part of your priority, considering the fact that Auckland rates has increased close to 6% for next year?
Yeah, so the increase for next year is largely about the $200 million increase with the depreciation and OPEX on the City Rail Link, and that will be also an increase for the government. I mean, we have had the lowest rate rises of almost any council in New Zealand in the last 3 years. We've saved $600 million, as Jesley Simpson through her committee has put out there.
But that wasn't your priority in the top three.
It's always a priority. So you said services, so rates are not a service. They're how 35% of the revenues that come in to pay for what Aucklanders want.
I said prioritise the top three items. Yeah.
And so rates will be a big priority as part of the system we pay for, but we're always trying to keep that down. But in 2023, for instance, there were significant cuts put forward, and 70% of Aucklanders said that they would prefer to pay higher rates than have cuts to environment, CAB, culture, art, sports, libraries. This was one of the biggest consultations we've had, and that's why we put up the rate slightly, but we have been making significant savings, including almost $600 million this term, as Councillor Deputy Mayor Simpson has made clear that her leadership on that has been pretty significant. But we do have issues with inflation, just like the government does. But the government, last year, the average household paid an extra $223 in rates. But if you had an average household that had the average wage increase, they would have paid about $1,500 extra in PAYE, but they didn't. The government doesn't need to consult on that. So we are trying to keep rates down, but we also know that Aucklanders expect us to be funding the water, the transport, and the activities that they need, the libraries, the 56 libraries we have, the parks and services, the everything. And people submit very clearly. If they submitted very clearly they don't want us to do something, we then review what we're doing and try and reduce that.
So every councillor comes with priorities from their own community. They may, as you say, have different priorities. So yes. How does council come up with the top three, for example, let's say?
Well, the top three, I mean, if you're thinking...
I'm not suggesting that's the only thing that you do, but, top three pieces of work, the priority for the council to deliver for the community. If every councillor, every, local board has different priorities, how do we actually deliver for the people?
Yeah, well, I mean, each community has hundreds of priorities. That's why we have local boards. That's why we have communities that are set up. I mean, this term, the priorities have been working with the government on things like the flood mitigation and buying 1,200 homes that we didn't, prepare for. If we'd capped the rates, and we probably wouldn't have been able to do the buyouts or the flood protection, working in partnership. Thank you to the government for continuing that. And I've been working really closely with Minister Watts and Dan Bidwell on that as well in my community, because it is a partnership between government, and we just want these partnerships to continue. We want good relationships with government, and I think this bill doesn't do that, but there are lots of things we could be doing. Savings, transport reform, what you guys are allowing us to do is significant, and there should be savings